Hi, my name is Mark Richards. Welcome to Richards FM Volume 5. So, for the last 4 or 5 weeks, I've been throwing some new stuff at you, stuff that you might not have heard before. This week, I'm going to do something completely different, just for a change. These are 12 albums that I've picked out that meant a lot to me growing up. You will, being the intelligent people that you are, have heard of all of them. I'm not throwing any curveballs in, apart from maybe the tracks that I'm putting in the playlist, just to put something different in, for the most part. So that's what we're doing this week. I'm not a format snob. All these 12 albums I have on both CD and vinyl. My vinyl is rather old looking because I've had it 34 years in some cases. So I've got the CDs out as well, just to see how we get on. And that's what we're doing this week. So let's get going. Before I start, all these tracks are in the Richards FM Volume 5 playlist on Spotify, and also in the big Richards FM playlist, both of which I shall put links for in the description below. Please leave comments and subscribe if you feel the urge. So that's that. Let's get cracked on. So in no particular order other than possibly alphabetically, The Art of Noise is what we're going to start with. I love this album. I love the artwork. It's such a good album. This came out in 1984. It was the debut album for The Art of Noise. Let's have the CD because that takes up a lot less room. The CD, the album came out in 83. The EP, Into the Battle with The Art of Noise, came out before that. And this was a culmination of The Art of Noise, ostensibly being Trevor Horn, and Dudley J.J. Zalek and Gary Langan, and at a later point Paul Morley from the NME. They all created this album on the back of working with Malcolm McLaren on his Duck Rock album, which is a hugely cut and paste hip hop album. If you've not heard that, probably worth checking out. They also worked on Yes's seminal 90125, including the stupidly monster hit Owner of a Lonely Heart. And all of these tracks and all these songs, as well as working with ABC and different people, culminated in the Art of Noise sound, which is hugely influential on a lot of hip-hop artists and a lot of electronic music. As years went by, fire started by Prodigy being the obvious kickstart point. Excuse me. So yes, the Art of Noise. Who's afraid of it? Has beatbox diversion 1 on it, which is 8.5 minutes of just class, absolute class. Moments in Love, the original version of that, 10 minutes long and just beautiful. Just such an awesome piece of work, and Close to the Edit, obviously, which everybody knows. I'd first heard of the Art of Noise on the Tube, which is a British music show in the 80s, and they showed everything. And they showed the video for Close to the Edit, which is still brilliant now. There's 2 videos, but the more arty cut and paste thing is the one to go for. Yes, just really good, and this really captured me, so I got into the Art of Noise big time after that. Worth checking out. I've been reissued on deluxe and stuff as well, so yeah, worth checking that out. Art of Noise. Next is Big Audio Dynamite. So this was a band formed by Mick Jones after splitting with The Clash. This features Don Letts, who's famous for his filmmaking and his DJing, and also has a show on Radio 2 on the BBC. Formed with Greg Roberts, Leo Williams and Dan Donovan, who was taking the pictures for the sleeve of this album, which I love. It's great. This, again, uses samples, which was all the rage in the 80s. In the early 80s with stuff. And the Art of Noise took it to a completely different direction. But Big Audio Dynamite, you'll have heard E equals MC squared. If you've not heard anything else off the album, I've put The Bottom Line in the playlist this week, which was also a single from it. Excuse me. Only 8 tracks, worth a listen. It's just such a good album. So the guitars are really good, the lyrics are really good. I think Joe Strummer, when this album came out, really slated it, which is obviously the guy from The Clash, and one of the other guys from The Clash. And he slated it so much he came in to write songs for the second album, Number 10 Upping Street, which again is such a good album as well. Hip hop, samples, guitars, rock, bit of dub, all part of the Big Audio Dynamite experience. They made some classic songs, some classic singles, to my mind, and this album is a good place to start if you've not heard Big Audio Dynamite. So yeah, there's that. Love Big Audio Dynamite. Third track this week is by my favourite band of all time, and you're going to laugh, and I don't care. That's all there is to it. Big Country, stop laughing. Big Country, The Crossing, debut album. Stuart Adamson, famously in the Skids before Big Country, wanted to create a rock band that wasn't all spandex and big hair, and did just that. This was whole part of the the Celtic rock scene that I mentioned last week with the Silencers and Simple Minds and U2. Still such a good album in my mind. I'm completely biased, but if you've not heard all of Big Country, this is worth starting, and it's worth checking out the rest of it, because they're not a one-trick pony to my mind. This has In a Big Country, Fields of Fire and Chance That You'll Know on it. The track that I've put in the playlist this week is The Storm, which has bags of atmosphere and storytelling to it. They are at the best a storytelling band. So I'll put The Storm in. Check that out. It's completely different from the singles you would have heard, and also the same at the same time. Weird, I know. And it also has the Porriman. There's the last track, which is like nearly 7.5, 8 minutes long, of just pure beauty. So yeah, check this out. Really, really good album. And I still love it. So yeah, that's that. And I'm not ashamed to say so. I've got the CD of that as well. And I love the artwork on it. Just the gold leaf, the embossed gold leaf on it. And it's just so simple and yet so effective, and captures the atmosphere of the album just in that, which is just brilliant. Love that. Right, so the next track we have this week is by Leonard Cohen. And this is from his Greatest Hits album. If you've not heard Leonard Cohen, this is a brilliant, brilliant place to start. This is one of those Greatest Hits albums, and there aren't many of them, to be fair. And I suppose it's subjective, but to my mind, there's probably this and Depeche Mode's first singles collection that transcend their parts and become an album of their own own devices, an album in their own right, even. Leonard Cohen's Greatest Hits, it takes the tracks from his first 4 albums and just creates an atmosphere to it. This was his poetic and troubadour-y best, in my mind. Obviously, we've got some of his later albums that went off on a whole 80s synth thing that don't really have the same atmosphere. The last album, You Want It Darker, really, really good. Proper good swan song for him. And Thanks for the Dance as well. But this is such a great album. Not a duff track on it. If you want to get into Leonard Cohen, this is the place. It's not happy music, but it is lyrically brilliant. You can't fault his lyricism, his poetic license, not poetic license, but poetic vision on this album. It's really good. I've put Chelsea Hotel No. 2 in there, famously written about Janis Joplin. No matter what anybody else tells you, it was written by Janis Joplin in the Chelsea Hotel in New York. Not a duff track. Great place to start with Leonard Cohen. So there's that. So next is another album I should probably be ashamed of, but I don't give a monkeys. Okay, Frankie Goes to Hollywood. And along with The Art of Noise and also Propaganda, this was all part of the whole ZTT label family. The ZTT had an aesthetic all of their own, which I just fell in love with at the time, and I still love now, as I do a lot of people. As to Welcome to the Pleasure Dome, I bought this on the day out. This is the original copy that I bought on the day it came out, when I was like 13 or something, 14. Obviously, the singles from this album were all mega hits everywhere. Relax, Two Tribes, The Power of Love, Welcome to the Pleasure Dome, less so, although that is the lead track on this album in all its 13-minute glory. Patchy, maybe, in places, maybe a bit dated. I've put Black Night, White Light on here because that is my favourite track on the album. There isn't a single or a cover version. There are quite a lot of cover versions on here. There's obviously got Born to Run and San Jose. But Black Light, White Light is just such a good song. I love the artwork on here. You know, there isn't really a lot I can say about this album, but it is just fell in love with the artwork, fell in love with the aesthetic, fell in love with the music, and as a 14-year-old impressionable, stupid teenager, fell in love with the whole thing. The only problem is I still love it now. So, what can I say? It's great. Oh, got the deluxe CD of it as well, which has got some great... If you get this, the version of Ballad of 32 is an 11-minute long pseudo Pink Floyd-esque go for it. It's just brilliant. Absolute standout bonus track on here. Yeah, so do that. If you're on 80s bin and you never ever did Frankie Goes Hollywood, you know, you really should have heard of all of these by now. But, you know, who knows? You may be just starting, and this is a good place to start. So, another good place to start with somebody, if you've never heard of them, is Led Zeppelin 1. Well, just such a brilliant album. This one's got a couple of good versions on it as well, with I Can't Quit You Baby, which was originally a Otis Rush song. Excuse me. I just fell in love with this album as well first time I heard it. Didn't know a lot about Led Zeppelin. Knew that I wanted to get into them. Had a bunch of Madonna 12-inch singles. Yes, Madonna 12-inch singles. I'd Like a Virgin, A Holiday and stuff like that. And I went and traded them in at a second-hand record shop for, I think it was the first 4 Led Zeppelin albums. Excuse me. Oh God, what a deal that was. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, fell in love with them. Love Led Zeppelin. This album is just great. Yeah, there isn't a duff track on here either, surprisingly enough. And this time it really isn't subjective. You know, you can't argue with it. You know, Babe, I'm going to leave you. Your time is going to come. Seethed into Black Night Inside. I Can't Quit You Baby. How many days? Just everything on this album is so good. If you've never listened to Led Zeppelin before and you're looking for a way in, just do this. I mean, seriously, don't get a best of, don't get a live album, just get this. And if you don't love this, then you will not love Led Zeppelin. Such a good album, such a classic album. Yeah, again, I bought that second hand. I bought the remasters as well, which, you know, I've got. Well, I love the remastered CDs. They're just like mini versions of the originals. It's great. I bought all of them. Right, so next, you may or may not have heard of these. You definitely should have done though. New Model Army. Proper band. This album, Thunder and Consolation, was the standout album, the album that should have propelled them into bigger things. But they're still going and they're still making quality, really good music. New Model Army, Thunder and Consolation. This has Stupid Questions, Green and Grey, Vagabonds. I first said I had a friend at school who got me into New Model Army for a start, was quite big into them. So I ended up buying No Rest for the Wicked on cassette. That is a really good album as well, but I haven't got that on physical anymore. That's a quality album. If you like a sort of, it's rock music, it's folk rock, it's political, it's socially aware, it's all sorts of things. That artwork, I was watching a documentary about this the other day, the Celtic knot on the front, which was done by Jules, was possibly at the time one of the most tattooed things going. You know, it was a really popular thing. But this album is just a classic from start to finish for a folk rock, hard rock. Well, it's not necessarily hard rock, but you've got all the lyrics on here. Yeah, it's just bags of atmosphere, and it changes. I don't like albums that generally sound all the same the way through, although I do love AC/DC, who are really good at that. But this album has different atmospheres, different vibes to it all the way through. The track I've put in the playlist is Family, which is one of the first tracks I heard of this on a compilation album that I bought, and I fell in love with that. Yeah, so try New Model Army, Thunder and Consolation again if you've not heard them way before. All of these albums are a great foot in the door for all of these artists. Yeah, I can't recommend that one enough either, as I wouldn't, because I absolutely love that. I listened to that again the other night and it was just great. Next is The Police, Ghost in the Machine. This album was the first Police album I actually bought, although I just love The Police. There was a whole thing when I was growing up. The Police were my favourite band. This came out in '81, so this makes this the 40th anniversary of this album. And I remember getting this on cassette for Christmas when it came out, and I was so excited. And I have to say, I played that cassette to death. I think I pretty much wore it out. I think it's still in the loft, to be fair, but I did pretty much wear it out. Absolute brilliant album. You know all the singles off this. I really like Darkness, which is the last track. I think it's a Stuart Copeland pen track. They were having a lot of issues at the time of recording this, which didn't come across in the Jules Holland documentary that I've seen at the time, and I've actually got a copy of it on a DVD somewhere. It was a really good documentary just watching them in the studio, but they were all at the time falling out. Andy Summers was splitting up with his wife. There was all sorts of things going on dynamically in the band, as there always was. And they still managed to make this, and I loved the artwork. It took me so long, ashamedly, it took me so long to realise that the three figures on the front are supposed to be the band members. I didn't know what the hell was going on with that for so long. I'm such a dolt sometimes. Anyway, The Police, Ghost in the Machine, really, really good album. Again, Police go-to album. Quality. What more can you say? I bought it so much I bought the t-shirt and the album, God knows how many times. So that's The Police. Next is Bruce Springsteen. Tunnel of Love. I'm not a massive Bruce Springsteen fan. This came out in '87, and I'd heard Brilliant Disguise off it, and then just didn't really think any more of it. One of my work friends had bought it and really hated it. He said, "Oh, I'll sell you this for £1 if you want." Okay, so I met him in town, and we did the dirty deed in town, and I brought this home and played it, and just completely fell in love with it. I mean, what a good album. What a great album. Even I've heard different ones. I've got 3 or 4 different Bruce Springsteen albums, and this one stands head and shoulders above everything else. It's basically like a stripped back Bruce Springsteen going to his, not necessarily his roots, but going to his soul album. You know, the songs on here are all about love. You know, they're all loss and yearning and infatuation and betrayal. They're all gamuts of the experience of love written into this album, from the opening yearning of Ain't Got You to Valentine's Day at the end of side 2. Really, really can't praise this album enough. It has the atmosphere, it has the connection to you, all these things that you can relate to, the way that Bruce Springsteen writes, and you can relate to. Yeah, I just completely love this album. What more can I say about it? Try it out. I put the track Two Faces in there, which is one of the more immediate tracks. I mean, they're all immediate tracks. But to me, it's like a standout track, possibly my favourite on the album, which is really hard to choose, but I love it every time I hear it. So yeah, check that out. See what you think. Bruce Springsteen. Wonderful. Next, we've got Thunder. Thunder's Backstreet Symphony. So, this album is, again, so good. It came out in 1990. Formed from the ashes of Terraplane, in which Danny Bowes and Luke Morley were playing. And when they split, they formed their own band, got up some musicians and took with them. What a debut. Produced by Andy Taylor from Duran Duran, who obviously split from Duran Duran at the time and was doing a lot of production work and stuff with the Power Station and Robert Palmer and things like that. And he went on to, Andy Taylor at the time was producing quite a lot of stuff for artists around rock bands and stuff. So Thunder he did the first couple of albums for. He did one for The Almighty we were discussing last week. Yeah, this is such a good album for a hard rock 90s hard rock album. You can't go wrong. Don't Wait for Me, She's So Fine, Dirty Love, all classics. What have I put in the playlist? I put cover version of the week. I found a cover version of the week. Their version of Spencer Davis Group's Give Me Some Lovin' is superlative. I'd actually not listened to the original version of that before, which is really, really strange. So I've had a listen to that this morning, and there's a version on the Blues Brothers soundtrack as well. The Thunder version just stands head and shoulders above them all from my point of view. This is the Japanese import thing from Black Street Symphony Live. Great stuff. So yeah, give me some loving from the guitar, the opening riff of it, to when the drums kick in, to all the way through it. Such a good vibe, such a good energy. As has the album. It just stands the test of time. Thunder have just released a new album called All the Right Noises, which I was listening to last night, and it's absolutely a proper return to form album. So good. I'll be spinning that a bit more, or streaming it, or whatever it is I want to do. Yeah, so Backstreet Symphony, debut album from Thunder. Yeah, worth a check out if you're into hard rock and stuff and you've not heard Thunder before. Yeah, great album. I'll walk back in there in a minute, so I'll do that in a minute. Yeah, so check out Thunder. I should throw all of my stuff around everywhere. Oh dear. All fingers and thumbs today. Not to worry. So that's Thunder. I may throw one of the new tracks of Thunder in next week because it's such a good album. So we're going to do that. Next, the Matt Johnson second album, Infected. Again, when did this come out? This came out in '86. 8 tracks, again, of wonderful quality, completely different. Love the artwork. Had 4 singles off it. Infected was the one that's propelled this one up. But there's also Slow Train to Dawn, which is one I've put in the playlist this week, featuring Nina Cherry on vocals. Yeah, if you've not heard this, you need to, basically. I think it's fairly essential. I don't even know how to describe this. It's by turns electronic, it's by turns indie, it's by turns rock. It's just, again, bags and bags of atmosphere. There was actually a film which I've not watched, which I might have to get around to doing it, but he made a video for every track on the album, and it came into one long film at the time, which nearly destroyed him reading about it today. And it made a mess of his fragile mental health at the time. Again, such a good album. Got some proper people working on it as well. Out of the Blue, Heartland, which is one of his biggest singles. Yeah, so I would recommend this. Checking that out as well. I've put Slow Train to Dawn in the playlist, as I say. Yeah, can't recommend that one enough either. And I can't recommend all of his albums enough. They are albums of my life, and I just love them. So yeah, Infected, check that one out. Where are we? We're on the last track. Oh, that went quickly, didn't it? Well, quickly enough anyway. Now, you will have heard of this, but I couldn't resist putting it in. U2, The Joshua Tree. I mean, what can you say about this album? Really, just listen to this album lots and lots, because it's just brilliant. Again, one of those bands I didn't really know a lot about until Live Aid. I'd heard of, obviously, they'd had a few, 3, 4 albums out before this. I knew about them, but again, one of those artists I was kind of afraid to get into until Live Aid, and I saw them doing Bad and whatever else they did at Live Aid. Because I'm that old, I was actually watching that live. And then they did The Joshua Tree after that. God, what an album. What have I put on here? One Tree Hill. I can't remember what I put in the playlist. One Tree Hill is just a cracking album, cracking track. I went out and bought With or Without You, which was the first single from this on the day it came out. Yeah. What can I say? The B-sides for all this were really good as well, including the original version of Sweetest Thing, which was on the B-sides of With or Without You, I think. Yeah. The Joshua Tree. Love this album as well. So, yeah. There's not much more you can say about that, really. So that's your 12 tracks for this week, along with 12 albums to go and just listen to all week. That gives you your listening to. I would heartily recommend and plead for you to go and listen to all of these albums, if not just the playlist. But listen to all of the albums. They are a great start if you've not heard any of these before. They're a great introduction to a lot of music that can send you off into all sorts of different directions, and hopefully teach you a bit more about the music history. And basically, it was just me showing off 12 of my favourite albums for half an hour, which is what I've done. Great stuff. So, yeah, the playlists are up. Enjoy them if you can get to them. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment, subscribe, and all of that sort of paraphernalia, whatever. And that would be good. And tomorrow, next week, we shall have more new stuff. I might do this occasionally because I quite enjoyed that. That was pretty cool. So yeah, more new stuff next week. Lots of new stuff coming out and about. Yeah, so that's that. Take care. Thank you for joining, and all the best.